1. e4, Karpov opens with the king's pawn, once again showing his willingness to engage in the main lines in most complex variations of chess. 1. g6, his opponent, Karen, replies with the modern defense, a hyper-modern system that avoids immediate central confrontation and aims to control the game from the flanks. 2. d4, Karpov immediately seizes the center with his pawns, the most principled and ambitious way to challenge Black's flexible setup. 2. bg7, the fianchetto is complete. The modern bishop now takes its post on the long diagonal, from where it will exert long-term pressure on White's pawn center. 3. c4, Karpov creates a formidable pawn phalanx in the center, a structure reminiscent of the king's Indian defense, aiming for a significant space advantage. 3. c5, Black immediately challenges White's central control, creating a Benoni-like structure. The game is now set for a complex strategic battle. 4. d5, a key decision. The young Karpov closes the center, accepting a long-term strategic fight where his space advantage will be pitted against Black's queenside counterplay. For d6, Black solidifies his pawn structure and restricts the scope of White's light-squared bishop, preparing for the long maneuvering battle ahead. 5. nc3, Karpov continues with logical development, reinforcing his control of the key central squares and preparing to mobilize his pieces. 5. na6, a typical Benoni knight maneuver. The knight is heading for the c7 square, from where it will support the queenside and prepare for future action. 6. b3, a solid developing move. The bishop is placed on a flexible square, from where it supports the center and prepares to connect the rooks. 6. nc7, the knight completes its journey, and Black's setup is now complete. The strategic battle lines have been clearly drawn. 7. qd2, the queen moves to a useful square, connecting the rooks and preparing for a potential kingside expansion or queenside defense. A very flexible move. 7. a6, Black begins his queenside counterplay, preparing to advance his b-pawn to create threats and open lines on that side of the board. 8. bd3, Karpov develops his bishop to an active square, from where it supports the e4 pawn and eyes the Black kingside, keeping his options open. 8. bd7, Black develops his final minor piece, preparing to support the queenside pawn storm, which is his main source of counterplay. 9. ng2, Karpov develops his knight to e2, a classic move in these structures that keeps the f-pawn free to advance later and supports the center. 9. b5, the queenside counterattack begins in earnest. Black launches his pawn storm, seeking to create threats before White can organize an attack of his own. 10:00, King's safety is the first priority. Karpov gets his king out of the center before embarking on the complex middle game plans. 10. rb8, the rook is developed to the b-file, where it will support the advance of the b-pawn and put pressure on White's queenside. 11. rab1, a profound prophylactic move. Karpov prepares to meet Black's queenside pressure head-on, improving the position of his own rook. 11. nf6, Black develops his knight, but it is a slightly awkward square in this structure, as it can get in the way of his own pawn breaks. 12. bh6, a deep strategic decision from the young Karpov. He initiates the trade of the dark squared bishops to eliminate Black's most powerful piece and weaken the kingside dark squares. 12:00, Black is forced to castle into the line of fire, but there is no better option. The king is now a potential target. 13. bxg7, the exchange is completed. Karpov has achieved his strategic goal, and Black's kingside is now permanently weakened. 13. kxg7, Black recaptures, and his king is now slightly exposed. This will become a key factor as the game develops and the attack begins. 14. f4, with the dark squared bishop gone, Karpov immediately begins his kingside pawn storm, seeking to rip open the files and launch a decisive attack. 14. fa8, the knight is forced to retreat to a passive defensive square, a sign that Black is already feeling the pressure of White's impending attack. 15. ing3, the knight is rerouted to a powerful attacking square. From g3, it is poised to jump to f5 or h5, creating direct threats against the king. 15. e6, Black desperately tries to create some counterplay in the center, but this pawn break only serves to open more lines for White's well-coordinated pieces. 16. b3, a calm and cool defensive move. Before continuing his attack, Karpov takes a moment to solidify his queenside, showing remarkable maturity. 16. exd5, black exchanges in the center, but this only clarifies the position in white's favor, opening the c-file for his pieces. 17. nxd5, a mistake from Karpov, but the position is so rich that it does not spoil his advantage. A more precise recapture was with the pawn. 17. nxd5, black is forced to exchange, simplifying the position slightly, but the fundamental problems of his exposed king and passive pieces remain. 18. cxd5, Karpov recaptures, and he now has a strong pawn on d5 and an open c-file for his rook. The strategic advantage is still clear. 18. rc8, the rook is developed, but it is forced into a defensive role. Black has no active plan and is simply reacting to white's threats. 19. bc2, the bishop is rerouted to a more active diagonal, from where it will participate in the coming kingside attack. A very mature decision. 19. kg8, a quiet king move, but it is a sign of desperation. Black is simply waiting for white to execute his winning plan. 20. e5. The breakthrough. Having patiently built up his position, Karpov unleashes the e5 pawn thrust, blasting open the center and transforming his advantage into a decisive attack. 20. ing7, the knight is forced to retreat, a sad testament to the failure of black's strategy. The game is now strategically won for white. 21. b1, the final piece joins the assault. With the rook coming to the e-file, all of Karpov's pieces are now aimed directly at the black king. 21. re8, the rook tries to create a defensive line, but it is a hopeless task. The white pieces are too strong, and the position is lost. 22. n4, the knight jumps to a powerful central outpost, from where it puts immense pressure on black's position and creates new and decisive threats. 22. dex5, black is forced to capture the pawn, but this only serves to open the f-file for white's rook, adding to black's misery. 23. fex5, the f-file is now open, and the white rooks are poised to deliver the final, crushing blow. The attack is overwhelming. 23. nf5, the knight returns to a defensive square, but it cannot hold back the tide. The position is now completely, strategically won for white. 24. nf6+, the knight lands on the crushing f6 outpost. It is a monster, paralyzing black's defense, attacking the king, and paving the way for the final combination. 24. kg7, the king is forced to a more vulnerable square. The white pieces are now working in perfect harmony, and the pressure is unbearable. 25. bxf5. The first sacrifice. Karpov gives up his bishop to shatter the pawn cover in front of the black king. This is a demonstration of incredible attacking instinct. 25. bxf5, black is forced to recapture, but his king is now completely naked and exposed to the full force of white's remaining pieces. 26. rxf5. The thunderbolt. A stunning rook sacrifice follows immediately. The 12-year-old Karpov rips open the kingside completely, leaving the black king defenseless. 26. rh8, black declines the sacrifice, but the position is completely lost either way. The white attack is simply too strong to be stopped. 27. rf3, a move of remarkable composure. Instead of rushing, Karpov calmly repositions his rook to a more effective square, preparing to weave the final mating net. 27. c4, a desperate attempt to create some counterplay on the queenside, but it is far too little and far too late. The game is over. 28. bxc4, Karpov calmly deals with the threat and prepares to continue with his winning plan. The execution is flawless. 28. bxc4, black captures a pawn, but it is a futile gesture. The game will be decided by the direct attack on the king. 29. qd4, the queen joins the final assault. With the queen on the d-file, all of white's pieces are now perfectly coordinated for the checkmate. 29. qa5, a final, desperate check, but it is a futile gesture. The game is over, and these are just the last gasps of a dying position. 30 Ref 1, Karpov ignores the threat and doubles his rooks on the f-file, preparing to deliver the final, decisive blow. The precision is remarkable. 30 QC5, Black is forced to offer a queen trade to relieve the pressure, but the resulting endgame is completely lost for white. 31 QXC5, Karpov simplifies into a winning endgame. By trading queens, he removes any last vestiges of counterplay and clarifies his path to victory. 31 RxC5, Black recaptures, but the resulting endgame is trivially winning for white. The white knight is a monster, and the black king is helpless. 32 Ing4, the knight is rerouted to a more active square, from where it will create decisive threats. The execution of the win is a matter of technique. 32 Rf8, the rook is forced into a passive defensive role, but it cannot defend against the multitude of threats that white has created. 33 Nf6, the knight returns to its dominant post, and the final phase of the game is about to begin. The execution will be flawless. 33 Rfc8, the rook tries to create a defensive line, but it is a hopeless task. The white pieces are too strong, and the position is lost. 34 Rc3, the rook creates a decisive pin on the c-file, and the game is now over. Black is completely paralyzed and cannot move. 34 Ra5, the rook tries to create some counterplay, but it is a futile gesture. The game is over, and these are just the last gasps. 35 E3, a calm and cool defensive move, solidifying the position before delivering the final blow. The composure is incredible. 35 Rac5, the rook returns, but the position is completely hopeless. White has a decisive advantage, and the end is near. 36 Kf2, the king becomes the hero. Karpov activates his king, marching it decisively into the center of the board to support the final attack. 36 F5, a pawn move, but it is a futile gesture. The game is completely lost, and these are just the last gasps of a dying position. 37 RB1, the rook joins the attack, creating new and decisive threats. The black position is collapsing from all sides. The end is near. 37 R5C7, the rook is forced into a passive defensive role, but it cannot defend against the multitude of threats that white has created. 38 Q3, the king continues its majestic march into the heart of black's position. The king will deliver the final blow. 38 Re7, the rook tries to create some counterplay, but it is a hopeless task. The white king is too strong, and the position is lost. 39 KD4, the king arrives on the d4 square, a dominating post from where it controls the entire board. The game is over. Black resigns. 1-0.